There's so much of fundraising.
Osota. Ukigunge dog.
Naenda transition yourself. Ndio that. Nini imekataa.
Just mute her.
Sauti ndio iko na shida.
Everyone can hear.
They are gathered. We are gathered ready to start.
So good afternoon, everyone. Hello.
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 I want to welcome you. Yeah, I can see the various. So Rina, I can see you waving. I can see the Kajiado team.
Most of who logged in are actually muted.
Oh, okay. So I kindly request everyone to mute, yeah?
Okay.
Okay. I'm starting off. I'm done starting off. Yeah. So we can. Oh. Yes. So. We can start. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. If you can hear, please type something in the chat window, just so that we know you can hear us. Once again, thank you very much for your patience. We are here to start off the webinar. The webinar will take around 1.5 hours. We'll give quite a bit of time for plenary so that we can have discussions about this migration in detail. and explore the next steps that we'll be taking. So once again, welcome to this webinar. So I'll just take you through the preliminaries. This is a webinar on transitioning IQCare EMR implementations to KenyaEMR. It is being conducted in collaboration with the USG, who are represented here. Palladium, ITech, and other stakeholders who are basically you. You will be part of this webinar as participants today, but as we move forward, you will be part of the migration. We request that if you have any questions, the chat box is available to you. Please type it down. We have people on standby who will be responding to those questions during the course of the webinar. At the end of this webinar, we hope that participants will be able to understand what migration is in this context, to understand the reasons why we are conducting this migration, to understand who is going to be affected by the migration, which data is being migrated, the migration process, the timelines, and to understand their roles and responsibilities in this migration exercise. So we have a number of sessions. NASCOP will facilitate the first session that will start shortly, followed by a technical presentation from Palladium. Health IT will provide information about the support available for during this migration period. Then we'll have a team from USG just highlighting some specific guidance that will be there. Then we'll have a bit of plenary during which we can be able to have an interactive session and on the next steps. So some ground rules. Please try to keep your microphones muted. However, we have an admin who will keep you muted at all times unless required. Questions will mostly be received through the chat function in the conference app, and the Q&A session will mostly be based on this. We request that you maintain professional etiquette during the Q&A sessions when we will be unmuting you for that purpose. So we have representatives from the National Ministry of Health. We have a USG representation in this webinar. We have health information system partners, including Health IT, is represented here, and other partners who have been supporting us, FACES and ANPAC. We have service delivery partners, county representatives, including the CASCOS, and we hope that we are going to all be able to participate effectively. I can see some complaint that sound is not working effectively. It is going to be sorted out in a few minutes. In the meantime, we are providing just an overview of the migration from the perspective of NASCOP. Sound is off. So we have a sound issue. I'm typing. Hopefully we can
Hello everyone. Those ones who cannot hear our sound, kindly join by audio.
Network.
No, still the network.
The video.
Yeah, they have not yet joined by audio. That's why they can't hear us.
Okay, so those who cannot hear, if you know someone who is not able to hear, please let them know that they can join by audio. Some people have not joined by audio, that's why they cannot hear. Okay, I can see good feedback from the team that sound is okay now. So we'll proceed. We are just providing an overview of this migration. More detailed engagements on this migration will be happening as part of follow-up activities that we will request you to participate in. So this is an outline of the presentation. We will have an MOH representative taking us through the preliminaries of this migration. Then Palladium will conduct a technical presentation. We'll have a presentation from Health IT, and then we have a PEPFAR presentation. Then we finish off through a plenary session. So in session 1, I'll request Faith, who has talked to you just a few minutes ago, to take us through the first session of this webinar. Faith, can you hear everyone? Can you speak so that we can hear you?
Yes.
Okay, Faith.
Yes, I can. I can hear you. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, so now we are going to just have an overview of the migration and define the scope of what the migration will entail. So what is migration? It is
your internet connection.
You can't hear me?
Easy, madam.
Hello? Okay, so what is IQCare migration? IQCare migration is transitioning the IQCare to implementation of KenyaEMR so that we can be able to maintain them as a functional state. So in regards to the migration, we'll be looking at the 742 IQCare sites under the 27 service delivery partners, 4 data sets, and out of these sites, we have about 56% of the data that is contained in the data warehouse. And so in regards to the migration, there will be several stages or several activities that will be entailed, part of which will be development of the toolkit and validating it. And this will be under Palladium. Then we will have migration toolkit completed and validated. It will be collaborative efforts between NASCO, Palladium, and the service delivery points. And then in terms of the actual migration, that is transitioning from IQCare to KenyaEMR, it will be the responsibility of the counties and the service delivery implement.
I think our internet is on.
Just unmute us. We seem to have dropped Faith off. Just go to the previous slide. Faith seems to have dropped off. Previous slide. Faith seems to have dropped off, so I'll just take it from here until she comes back on. In the previous slide, Faith has mentioned that there are several phases of migration. Palladium will mainly be responsible for the first phase in collaboration with partners. And this phase is coming to a conclusion in June 2020. At the end of this session, we expect to have a functional migration toolkit and the attendant SOPs so that we can be able to now do the actual migrations. So we are currently reached the point where we can bring in the service delivery partners and their representatives so that they can participate in completion and validation of the migration toolkit. Once this is done, then we will be discussing with the counties and service delivery partners on the actual migration to KenyaEMR. Yes, so we will then be talking about the actual migration to KenyaEMR. So all activities that we will be doing from this point forward will be preparing us to start off the actual migrations. Now, in terms of how this migration is organized, we have oversight that is being provided by the Ministry of Health through NASCO and the US government, and I think we all know the agencies that work through the Strategic Information Research and Implementation Science Committee of Experts. They'll provide oversight. Palladium will be providing technological support. What this means is that we'll be developing the migration toolkit and making sure that the EMR versions of KenyaEMR and IQCare are ready for migration. We will also be supporting you to validate the migration toolkit. We have counties and service delivery partners who will be responsible for preparing these facilities to migrate, but also to support them to conduct the actual migration from IQCare to KenyaEMR. So this is an important slide because it kind of clarifies the roles of each player in this migration exercise. Next. So why migrate to KenyaEMR? This slide was to be done by Ministry of Health, but the main idea is to consolidate all our resources to support one EMR platform so that we can achieve the goals of the government of Kenya. For those of us who use both KenyaEMR and IQCare, you realize that we have been basically doing duplicate work, making sure that KenyaEMR and IQCare have the same functionalities over time. This is not only resource intensive, it is duplicative. The second thing is that there's a global move towards the use of open source systems, which include OpenMRS. So there are services and software that are referred to as global goods. And I think these global goods are tools that are generally free and open source and are used to provide services in the health sector. I think you can get more details online. The OpenMRS itself has an active, globally recognized community that contributes to OpenMRS code and design. What this means is that it benefits from global level expertise, but it's also, we are also able to, to be part of a big community that supports KenyaEMR. If you look at IQCare currently, it is only used in 1 or 2 countries globally, and there are attendant benefits to transitioning to OpenMRS. The OpenMRS community maintains an internationally recognized data dictionary that controls vocabularies in the systems, which means that when it comes to just data exchange with other systems, we will be at the center of it. KenyaEMR, as it is, has its roots in Kenya. It was actually developed originally in Kenya, and I think Kenya has given the world OpenMRS, and I think we can be part of that global community. So recently, the SIRI committee of experts was chaired by Dr. Oramisi in the presence of the head NASCOP. A lot of discussions were had on this migration, and a number of activities were proposed or were agreed on as the way forward. So the Ministry of Health formed a steering committee that would lead this migration. We'll see that in the next slide. But for now, an oversight committee was formed on this migration, and it's already in place. It is being chaired by Faith. It is chaired by Faith. We agreed on a webinar date, and that is the webinar we are holding today. So we are going to be taking you through this session. We are going to be, during this session, proposing to have user groups who will help to validate the toolkit that has been developed. This will be represented by MOH representatives, service delivery partners, and other HIS partners. We expect that counties will be represented and are requesting service delivery partners to facilitate them to attend these focus group meetings. So at the end of this webinar, we'll be discussing how that will be put in place. We agreed on pre-migration activities, county sensitization activities. Partners will have to support counties to conduct data cleaning before migration, because this has an effect on the data that will finally be migrated to KenyaEMR. Then we are going to be completing the migration toolkit together so that this becomes our collective project. So this is the committee that will be coordinating or steering the migration process. The Ministry of Health will be represented by NASCOP and the National Ministry of Health, the head of Health Informatics Directorate, Dr. Sitiene. Faith will be the chair of this steering committee. Palladium Health IT will have county representation from the Council of Cascos, and the agencies will also be represented. we are looking forward to the nominees from the different agencies to be part of this committee so that we can steer the migration process. The committee will be expecting monthly updates. A memo will be sent from the head NASCOP. This memo is going to go out shortly after this webinar. The webinar will just be providing context on why we are migrating, what we are migrating, who is going to be affected, when the migration is going to be conducted, and exactly how it will be conducted. As I indicated, the monthly reports are required to the committee of experts for onward forwarding to the steering committee for oversight purposes and for accountability. So some pre-migration activities were agreed upon in the committee of experts meeting as part of preparations for facilities to migrate. The first one was regional and county sensitization on the migration. So already there is a cluster meeting that is ongoing in Nyahururu for part of the counties. I hope they are logged in here to listen to this webinar. This will be conducted by NASCOP in partnership with Palladium, and we will be clustering counties to be part of these meetings. Subsequent to those meetings, we are going to require that sub-counties and facilities are sensitized on the migration. This will be done by partners who have a footprint on the ground. To migrate from IQCare, we needed to recommend a standard one version of IQCare that will be the one targeted for migration. So all implementations of IQCare should be on version 2.2.1 so that we can be able to make sure that all the requirements for migration are in that version. So partners will be required to migrate sites to version 2.2.1 if those sites are using a lesser version of IQCare. So pre-migration upgrades will be required, and these can be found on GitHub. The data quality assessments and data cleaning. We have done previous migrations, and we have realized that data cleaning is a very important part of migration because the receiving system must be able to accept the data that is being pushed from IQCare for migration to take place. This will be conducted again at site level by the counties and the service delivery partners. Palladium will provide guidance and technical support where appropriate. In terms of the roles and responsibilities for this migration, they have been outlined in the slide before you. The MOH will provide project governance oversight and manage communication at high level, resource allocation for both counties and service delivery partners, and for monitoring the project to ensure accountability. Service delivery partners who work closely with the sites will be responsible for data cleaning, continuous DQAs just before and also after migration, making sure sites are upgraded to the latest migration version of IQCare, participate in toolkit verification exercise to make sure that the data that is migrated, the integrity is maintained, and to cascade user training to end users at facility level on how to use and support KenyaEMR, and as well as how to use the migration toolkit if this personnel are going to participate in the migration exercise itself. They will be responsible for sensitizing providers and users of the migration and execute actual site-level migration. Palladium and the communities of practice, which will include other HIS partners as well as service delivery partners, will be responsible for developing the migration toolkit, making sure that TOTs are conducted and partners are trained on how to use KenyaEMR. Will be responsible for conducting migrations in support of service delivery partners at migration demonstration sites, developing the SOPs and guidelines on migration, and continuous technical and user support through our service desk. We will form migration user group that will be consisting of service delivery partners, HIS partners, the agencies, and county staff. We'll make sure that they are able to validate the migration toolkit, prioritize enhancements to EMRs, but also to conduct migration simulations just to make sure that it works according to their expectation. Basically what we call user acceptance testing. So now to just focus on these migration user groups, we are expecting to have at least 2 migration user group meetings. The first user group meeting will be taking place between February and March. So please look out for the email notification. The purpose will be to review the toolkit. We'll be sensitizing you on how the toolkit looks like and be able to review it and test it using test databases. The second user group will take place around April or May. After your input has been consolidated, we'll be able to call the team back to verify the migration tool and be able to basically sign it off at the end of the process. So the target individuals for this will be software developers and the other HIS technical staff from the service delivery partners and counties, and data staff, just to make sure that data integrity is given high priority during this particular migration exercise. So this is just showing a timeline of the migration. We sat down with the committee of experts and took them through the migration toolkit. The steering committee was formed, and the user groups, the proposed membership to the user group was agreed, and the pre-migration activities was agreed upon. So in March, once this has been done, you're going to have a review of the pre-migration activities. Remember that this has to be done as part of our monthly reporting to the committee of experts. Then the validation toolkit activities will be conducted together with county sensitization and planning meetings and tier 1 capacity building. The tier 1 capacity building involves basically making sure that we have individuals within county and service delivery partners who understand the migration toolkit to be able to test it so that the capacity building activities just flow seamlessly into the actual migration. In May, we'll conduct the final migration toolkit review, and then it will be ready for user testing and sharing for migration. At this point, I'll take a break and just inform you that the head NASCOP has joined us in this meeting. Dr. Ngugi, please just say hi before we can proceed.
I'm Jambo. Sorry, I've come a bit late. We have other matters, but the great job you're doing. Please continue. Let me not interrupt at all. But yeah, karibuni.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
So at this point, I'll take a break and ask Joseph to take us through the next few slides. Joseph has been a developer for IQCare for a number of years. He's currently a project manager. This particular migration project, he is the one who is actually leading it, and he will be taking you through a brief of IQCare and then take us on to the migration.
All right, thanks, Jacob, and the participants. Just some information is that we've reached the maximum numbers we can be able to host on this platform. That's 300. So we are requesting that those of you who are in the same room, please log off and join as a group using one account, so that those who are not able to join can be able to join on this migration webinar. So IQCare has been developed by Palladium from 2007 to date, 2020. But over the time, we've had different versions to address different and specific needs. So we had an IQCare SI version from 2000 to 2018, and an IQCare KNH version from 2013 up to date. And then we have IQCare KenyaHMIS version that branched off from the SI version in 2014 up to date. So the KNH version was developed in collaboration with UN and KNH to meet the unique needs. But generally, IQCare and IQ Tools, which is the platform for reporting, has been developed through, developed through PEPFAR, will cease being developed further due to this migration and for the reasons that we mentioned earlier by Dr. Jacob. So in that respect, the last release of IQCare was the one released on 13th January. That is the version 2.21 that we advised we need to upgrade to. That by the time the migration kickstart on the ground, we are all on that particular version. For IQ Tools, that's the reporting platform. Wanji. We have we will be releasing the last update on. Hello. Kindly mute yourselves so that we don't get some disruptions.
We'll give it to know, like, who is that talking? Are you able to pick up?
Yes.
Eh?
Yeah.
Who is that? Huh?
All right. Allow me to proceed. So on IQ Tools, the last version will be on March 6th, and this update will primarily contain the MER 2.4 upgrade, so that you're able to generate the latest dating from the system. So on the screen is a snapshot of actually where we are and what sort of migrations have happened before. So our main focus is on the topmost. Is it orange or gold? The orange. Bobo. Kanka.
Hello, how are you? What? Can you find out who it is, please? You picked? Okay.
All right, apologies for that. So we are currently targeting to migrate 742 sites. That's IQCare sites on the topmost, in the second column. That's under the current column, to KenyaEMR, so that by the end of this migration, we will be having around 1,160 KenyaEMR sites deployed. Other platforms that are non-KenyaEMR, we have eCare, we have Faces of PNMRS. From our SIRI meeting, I think it's the last 2 weeks or so, we will be working with them for them to develop their specific roadmap to guide that particular migration. So as highlighted earlier, these are the key data sets that we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at demographics, HIV, TB, HTS, and MNCH. And we'll also have others like the users of the system and other generic data sets that have been released so far. So in terms of migration, in terms of the timelines, we are looking at this process of developing the toolkit running up to May. And currently we are at a place where we are building and validating it. So we are building in the sense that we want to come up with an electronic toolkit that is easy to use and and has some DQA within it. But we are also validating it so that even as we build, we ensure that we are correctly mapping the data variables, and they are translated well from IQCare to KenyaEMR. Probably within March going forward, we will engage partners through the user group discussions that Jacob has mentioned, to help us in validating so that we can have more than one person looking at it. And because this migration will be happening at site level, it is important for people who are maintaining the particular sites to probably have a view of what we are doing. Concurrently, we are also undertaking training, and I think we'll get more details as to what the training entails for this sort of migration. So I'll let Kezia take us through the next section. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. On our next session, we will see about overall migration approach and timelines, whereby it has been categorized in 3 broad categories, one being collaboration, where the 6 C's approach has been used, the technology bit, that is the tools that will be used for the migration, and the capacity building section, which is a tiered approach. On collaboration, we will convene stakeholders, that is all the stakeholders at all levels, using the migration user groups, the cluster meetings, and other platforms, mainly to communicate about the project and to build consensus as we develop the capacity to support the project through the collaboration and continuous control and monitor. So we hope with this approach, we expect that we'll build the ownership and accountability for each stakeholder. And at the end, we are optimistic that this will be a success. Next. On the approaches to collaboration, as I've mentioned, all levels will be engaged. At the national level, where the NASCOP will oversee the migration process and the timelines. The SITT, that is the NASCOP MOH USG agencies, on updates and discussions on progress. Again, coordination of technical migration with the national SI partners, health IT. That is the national level. At the regional partner level, SDIPs will perform the technical migration using the toolkit to IQCare sites. There will be sensitization of CHMTs and target facilities on migration, availing of hardware and software to support migration, as well as monitoring and DQA support. And lastly, at the facility level, we hope to engage the facility in charges. User sensitizations and orientation on migration will be done. Facility DQAs and report verifications will be done. And when the migration is complete, a migration sign-off will be done at the facility level. On stakeholder categorization, we have categorized all the partners into various categories based on their technical skill, processes, technology, dedicated IT team, and the special factors. So the ticks illustrate the capacity of the technical capability of each partner. So there is a document categorizing each partner, which will be shared. Again, the categories, we have various clusters for each partner. And for partners who are in cluster 1 and 2, they can immediately start the migration. In cluster 3, these are the partners with the standard HMIS IQCare, but they lack the capacity. This migration can start after the training. There are planned trainings before that. Those partners classified under cluster 4 sites, these are the sites that run paperless HMIS IQCare with custom modules and forms. So for these ones, there will be a further in-house training on OpenMRS suite to developers to ensure that this site will continue to implement KenyaEMR on paperless basis again. On cluster 5, these are sites with non-HMIS IQCare, and as Junge has mentioned, these are advised to first migrate to HMIS IQCare versions, and then later a KenyaEMR migration will be done. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Valentine, who is our quality assurance officer, to take us through the next session.
So good afternoon, everyone. I will be taking you through the migration service. So for every product, we always have a vision. And on this migration, we have a vision, which is seamless automated migration of IQCare to KenyaEMR. So we are envisioning no data loss through a simple process which can be adopted by everyone, every stakeholder that is involved, and also receive feedback and give a complete process in a timely manner. Our scope is basically on specific activities that shall be carried out during the EMR migration from IQCare to KenyaEMR, on the assumption that all preparatory events would have been covered within the migration roadmap document. So on the migration service package, these are some of the things that we'll be able to do. We have a pre-migration phase whereby there will be a site preparation. So there will be engagement. We tell you what you are supposed to do, what migration entails, and why it's supposed to be done. So after that, then now we go to the second phase, which is the core, where the migration phase will be done. Now here we have data extraction and data staging, data transformation, data loading, and verification. So the first two, extraction and staging, will be done on the IQCare section. So once you are done with the extraction and staging, we'll see this in the upcoming slides, how it's done. Then the data transformation and loading will now be done under KenyaEMR. So with all this, you have at the back of your mind that we have to do a backup. Just in any case, something doesn't go well, so we'll revert back to what we have. So this one is, those are some of the precautions that we'll take before starting anything. So once the migration phase is done, there is approval where we'll do data verification. So you must ensure that whatever you had is what has been migrated, maybe number of patients. So those are some of the checks that we'll do under DQA reports. And we'll also have a checklist that will ensure that every information that is supposed to be done is captured. Then under post-migration support, we'll build your capacity on the post-migration and also monitor on the usage of KenyaEMR. Then we'll provide any migration technical support if need be. Then some of the DQA approach that we have a pre-migration, which will happen on the IQCare level. So that is level 1. We'll have to do a backup, then generate aggregate reports. You are not limited to the mentioned report, but you can go an extra further and get other reports that you might need. So we have like MY 731, HTS positives, TX current, and the line list. So you can go beyond that. It's not limited to the mentioned report. So on this, we'll have to select random patients to help us in the verification. So on the IQCare side, verify that this patient, the details, and all the indicators against these sample patients are correct when we'll do now the post-migration. This has to be saved somewhere because we'll use that data and information for verification when now we do post-migration. So under post-migration is KenyaEMR now, where the data extraction has been done. And now you generate the same reports against the same patients, the random patients that were selected, again for further verification. So for example, if you had current active on ART as 7,000, then that is what you're supposed to see in the post-migration on KenyaEMR. So that process should be well documented and backed up for further verification. So some of the reports that we'll use are DQA reports. As you can see, that is just a snapshot on how we generate the DQA report line list on IQCare and KenyaEMR. So the version of IQCare should read the same as what you have in KenyaEMR. So the report should be corresponding to one another. So at this juncture, I want to introduce our developer, Anthony who will take you through the technical approach to the migration. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So I'll take you through the technical approach to migration, and I'll start by saying that you look at migration as a process of moving data from one point to another, which in this case is moving data from IQCare to KenyaEMR. So that process is a pipeline that has 3 phases. The first phase involves getting data from IQCare, and that phase is called extraction. Then the second phase is transformation, which involves any modifications to that to data that has been extracted to conform to a format that will be readily acceptable in KenyaEMR. And the third phase is load, which is just loading the prepared data into KenyaEMR. So the migration process uses 2 tools. The first tool is used to extract data from IQCare and handle all preparations in readiness for the eventual loading into KenyaEMR. And for that, we use Pentao data integration tool, which is really open source. So, so this is Pentao. So Pentao allows you to define whatever you want to do. That is, in this context, all the extraction procedures and transformation procedures that will get us to a level where we have data which is clean and ready for loading into OpenMRS. So as you can see, it begins at one point where you execute all these jobs. Now, when it's successful, you'll have prepared data, clean data, which is ready for loading. Okay, so I mentioned that the process has 3 phases: data extraction, any transformations, and loading. So Pentao is used for, it's used at extraction and transformation. We have another module, which is a KenyaEMR module, which is used to now load data from prepared datasets into OpenMRS. So I'll just take you through the module quickly. It's an add-on module in KenyaEMR. So one will just log in using credentials, which will be created before migration. Now, as you can see, this is a blank, it's a KenyaEMR with blank database, meaning no patient, no person, we just have one user. So to get to the module, the spreadsheet module, we get to the admin app and then legacy UI, which will take us to a page where we'll find a link to the module we want to use. It's called spreadsheet import module. So when you click on that, you find a list of data sets which are created. And at that point, you click on migrate datasets and the process begins. Now, there is a progress bar which has a percentage of all, shows the progress of datasets processed. So when it gets to 100%, it means that it is complete. But before it gets there, it will tell you the percentage of completion. and also the data sets that are currently being processed. And that is highlighted in the table below the slider for the progress bar. And the currently processing data set is in green. It's in green text. So at that point, we started with a blank database. Now we have migrated data from IQCare. And as you can see, just under KenyaEMR, there is the name of the facility that has been migrated. So to just refresh the dashboard numbers, we need to refresh our reporting tables. So when that is done, you can now see the numbers have changed and they reflect, as can be indicated by different indicators shown on the facility dashboard. Yeah, so up to that point, we have a successful migration demo. Thanks, and I'll welcome the next presenter.
Yeah, so at this stage, I'll just take a bit of a break and ask Head NASCOP to say a few words before she steps out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. I think mine are only two issues, and I want first of all to thank the great team that is really working on this. I know Paradigm is spearheading the process, as well as the Ministry of Health, especially NASCOP. And I hope in this Zoom we as well have the, do you have the HIS? I hope we have the HIS from the Ministry of Health, the Dr. Senai or the team. So I'm grateful for each one of them. Now, there are two issues that I really want to bring out. That we'll be, after this, we'll be sending out a memo that will share the migration toolkit. And I would be requesting the implementing partners within the counties that they be able to start to support the county staff to participate in the migration activities. And as well, that even during the time of the migration, that the monthly progress reports, they should be able to continue throughout the migration period. And I hope, especially the part of the counties, in which I know you are talking now of the 40, we have the 7. Jacob is still to come back to me to give me what it needs, what do I need to support the 7 counties. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to see that. Now, there was 2 teams that were SIRI, COE will definitely be overseeing the migration through the Migration Steering Committee. And in case of any issues, please reach out to those 2 committees and be able to be guided the way forward. But I hope that all of us will participate in it fully as we embark on this great milestone, all of us. Thank you very, very much. And yes, the chair of the steering committee is Faith. The migration, the steering committee. Remember the SIRI, which is headed by Dr. Violet Oramisi, but the migration steering committee is headed by Faith. And I think the last meeting we had in Crown Plaza, we laid out exactly what are the deliverables of that committee. They're supposed to be often and give us. Thank you so much, and continue with the discussions. I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ngugi, for that session.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so at this point, we have a representative from CTC. I know Joe is going to step out in the next few minutes. So I'd like him to say a few words before we continue with the capacity building plans for this migration. I don't know, Joe, if you are online, please raise your hand.
Jacob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good to see the Palladium team. And first of all, just to really thank NASCOP for their visionary leadership with MOH towards this exciting migration. And also really it's encouraging from the PEPFAR end to see just so many people joining this webinar. We have, I think, over like almost 300 people. That's very exciting. So thanks for that. I just have a few slides. This is mostly guidance, especially for the service delivery partners and the other PEPFAR supported partners, just in terms of what we are thinking from the PEPFAR leadership end, in terms of guidance and sort of how the interagency technical team from Strategic Information has adopted this across the 3 agencies. So if I could go to the next slide, I'll walk through the PEPFAR guidance. Thank you. So this activity, as you all know, is managed supporting NASCOP through Palladium, through the KenyaHMIS 2 project, under my branch at CDC. And as has been stated, and which we have really agreed to at all levels, we are very committed to migrating towards KenyaEMR under NASCOP's leadership. This is not solely a CDC activity. Within the interagency team in PEPFAR, all 3 agencies that receive PEPFAR funds, this is CDC, USAID, and DOD, are working very closely with their service delivery colleagues and leadership to operationalize our guidance, which is globally, and I think, Jacob, you had introduced your comments this way. We're really trying to move towards open source systems in Kenya, but everywhere on the planet. So Kenya is on the cutting edge. So in terms of our guidance as PEPFAR, we've heard from head NASCOP, and I think she was very clear in her expectations. So to operationalize this, we really are asking you as partners prior to the end of May of 2020, but based on the timelines that have been really presented here in this webinar under Faith's coordination from NASCOP. We expect that all service delivery partners will participate in the migration, including the related meetings and the focus groups. We really need you to communicate from the IPs who are your focal people to work very closely with NASCOP and Palladium on the specifics of this migration. So if you can internally, the request is after this webinar, identify within your organizations who are going to be your main focal people and make sure that NASCOP knows as well as Palladium, so we are able to have effective, streamlined communications. As head NASCOP had also mentioned, we are very committed. We need to have representation at the focus group meetings. We find this very critical, so we are humbly asking you to also facilitate that through your organizations. For the migration work plans, these are agency specific. And so from CDC, if you are funded by a CDC partner, kindly work with your activity manager with the copy to the email address for the HIS team there. And then for USAID, also for the AORs, kindly be working under their guidance in terms of how you will operationalize this, again, with us on copy from the ITT, just again to streamline. And the same applies for DOD supported sites. We also really want to underscore, I think, what has already been highlighted in some of the technical portions of this webinar, but from the PEPFAR perspective, really to implement as much as possible rapid DQAs in order to really clean up some data, just to ensure that the most optimal data are migrated. Now, if everything is not perfect, this is not a stumbling block to actual migration to a new system. However, we don't want to take so much effort to migrate data where you know there are issues. So we would really ask you between now and end of May or when your time comes for migration, that the data are really as clean as they can be. So again, work with your AMs and AORs to make sure that's happening. The plan for capacity building and intensive TAs to the sites after migration, we really are going to need the service delivery partners funded through PEPFAR to be working hand in hand with the counties on this. And so again, under the guidance of your AMs and AORs, working with Palladium and our HIS team, let's make sure that those plans are committed to and also facilitated. Next slide, please. So this has already been stated on the webinar, but also just so it's confirmed also from the PEPFAR end, that we also agree and understand there will be no more enhancements to IQCare or IQ tools. As you all are now aware, the last release of IQCare was done on 13th Jan of this year, and they will have one final release on 6th March of the IQ tools. After this, we are not, any change in guidelines, any additional requirements, any updates whatsoever to IQCare will no longer be supported in order for us to really intensify our amelioration of the KenyaEMR system, as well as concentrating on those migration efforts. For the capacity building piece, kindly as IPs, you've seen the categorization that was presented earlier. Please validate Palladium's assumptions. If you have feedback, please give it to Palladium and NASCOP with us on copy in terms of, so we can make sure that we're all speaking from the same page and we understand where each partner and where we all are. We will be expecting capacity building of the end users during the actual migration. This will reside on the service delivery partners working hand in hand with the counties. So that is something that needs to also feature in the work you will agree to with your AMs and AORs. And then finally, for the support for the PEPFAR transition counties to which Head NASCOP had referred, for these 7, this one we're going to, we are seeking guidance both from MOH and the counties to guide on the support in order to ensure an optimal transition. But that's something that we're very much committed to having that dialogue with government to make sure is happening. But for IPs, none of you are working in those counties anyway. So we're not expecting you to facilitate in those counties. So we'll continue to dialogue with government so it's clear. And with that, Jacob, those were my remarks. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Joe, for making time to make that presentation. Just a couple of things just for the participants that from CDC presentation is the focal persons, especially for coordinating the communication on the migration. That will really help because there's quite a number of activities that have been planned. So please identify them and share them with that as soon as possible. Then the partner categorization. Palladium will be sharing the detailed categorization document that will let each partner know how they have been categorized, in what category they have been placed, so that they can be able to advise on where they think they fit based on their capacity. We had sent, some time back, we had sent an organizational capacity assessment document that I think can play a big role in helping you to know where you are placed. Thank you very much. And thank you, Joe, for that presentation. So we'll proceed with the final phase of the webinar, a few slides, then we'll go into a plenary that will allow you to share your opinions, your views, and suggestions. So Mwariri, please.
Thank you, Dr. Jacob. Good evening, everyone. So we are going to touch on the capacity building approach and activities that are going to accompany this migration process. Basically, we are looking at a 2-tier process, whereby Tier 1 is going to be solely under Palladium. And under Tier 1 activities, we are going to provide more of TOT trainings. These are grouped into 3. Our target audience for these particular activities are going to be the service delivery partners, and we're also looking at the county, HIS, MND, and program teams. So the first training schedule is a KenyaEMR system admin training. So this is for partners who've been supporting IQCare with no prior experience with KenyaEMR. So this is scheduled to take place in April. After that, we are going to have a migration training. So the purpose of this training is to walk the technical personnel basically through how the migration is going to happen. And this is scheduled for June. So this will be after completion of the migration toolkit. And the final training that will be conducted at Tier 1 will be the TOT. training for KenyaEMR. So this, again, the purpose for this is to ensure that people are able to use and navigate the system and provide continuous support for that. So again, that is scheduled for June 2020 upon completion of the migration toolkit. So tier 2 activities, this again has been emphasized by both CDC and MOH, is going to be the responsibility of the service delivery partners as well as the counties. And the target audience for these trainings will be both SDP staff, and we're also looking now at a county level. We're going to drill all the way to the sub-county and to the facility staff. So for facilities that are going to, of partners and counties that will have champions, you're going to be able to cascade the system admin training for KenyaEMR after April 2020. And this is not a one-off, so these activities are going to proceed forward. We're also going to be looking at the partners to cascade the migration training. The beauty of this is that it's going to build a pool of people who are able to do this process much faster, as opposed to the few who will have been trained at tier 1. And the final training that we are envisioning is a cascaded end user training. So this will happen at facility level. So this again will be an activity that can be done by champions, service delivery, and county teams. Again, this will not be a one-off, and we envision that this happens from June 2020 onwards. So after the capacity building bit and all the other items that we've discussed, there are a few items that need to be deliberated upon as the next steps. And from the Palladium perspective, our immediate next steps, the first one is finalization of the development of the electronic migration toolkit. And for that, I know we've already talked about the things that we require, including the user groups for validation. So we'll be looking to the partners to assist in this bit. We're also going to look into the development of the user guides. So by the time this is done, and for those who have been privy to this, you're going to have all the documentation available on our resources page as soon as the toolkits are ready. We're also going to undertake the training. So these are the three that we've highlighted: the system admin, the migration, and the KenyaEMR TOT. And finally, after this is done, we're going to provide support for migration in select sites. So this is to validate that the toolkit and the whole process actually works. So we are going to be reaching out to the partners and the counties to help us select what we are calling demonstration sites. So once we have selected these sites, we'll support the migration and sign off on the process, which will now pave the way for the actual large-scale migration to take place. So when all that is done, what is the role of the SDIPs and MOH immediately after this? So the first one, which is an immediate action item from this webinar, is to have the working groups, the migration technical groups. So these are the user groups that we talked about, and we'll be reaching out to ensure that you're able to second people from both the partners and the counties to ensure that you're able to validate and to give a product that is working correctly. So the partners and the MOH, so counties, sub-counties, are also expected to spearhead the data cleaning and decay activities. So this is at the facility level. I think it cannot be overemphasized that we are looking as much as possible to migrate clean data. So it will be imperative that we clean our data and ensure that it is good. Once we've done that, or as actually these activities that are going to run in parallel, if there are facilities that are not yet upgraded, so we expect that the SDIPs and MOH are going to spearhead the upgrade of these sites to the versions that we have actually highlighted. So if say for IQCare, again, it has to be version 2.2.1, and the latest IQ tools that is scheduled for release in March. And once that is done, we are now going to look at the capacity building approach. So we expect that the trainings are going to be cascaded to facility level. Very important, so that we have people at facilities who are able not only to use, but also to support KenyaEMR. The partners, again, we expect that they'll be able to sensitize the providers and the end users on the migration. So over and above just using KenyaEMR. They need to understand that it's a process and they need to be comfortable with it. So that is upon us to ensure that that information gets to them. And then the final thing that we expect as an immediate step is to now go ahead and do the actual site level system migration. So that touches on the steps that we anticipate for both Palladium as a HIS, NASCOP, and the service delivery partners.
Yeah, thanks, Mwariri. Yeah, so the next section will be Health IT. They will be updating us on the scope and the role they're playing in this migration. But remember, you can raise questions through the chat function, and so that our team can be able to respond to that. Then at the end of the day, we will still share with you the responses for the questions raised, so that even if you're not able to address all of them during this particular meeting, we will be sharing with you the feedback and the responses to your questions.
Yeah, on capacity building is a very, very important part of this migration that should not be underestimated. The end users may not attend such a webinar, and we have to justify to them why we are doing this migration so that they really understand why we are migrating and buy into it. From previous experience, we have known that training becomes a very big bottleneck for users. So we really need to explore approaches that can ensure that the users are trained well and can be able to use KenyaEMR as is required for service delivery. We have a representative from Health IT. I think that should be Ngozi, who will be taking us through a brief session on the Health IT support. I know there are counties and partners who are supported by Health IT. Ngozi, could you just raise your hand so that we find you?
Has it left me?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Is that? It appears that he may not be online. Okay, I can see Ngozi. Hi, Nicholas.
Madam muted. What is that?
Ngozi, can you say hello? Nicholas? Nicholas? Yeah, okay. You can see him.
You can see him?
Yeah, he's unmuted.
Yeah, so Nicholas, you can proceed as we work to share your presentation. Nicholas, if you can hear us, please proceed as we work out to share your presentation.
proceed. So it appears that we are not able to hear Nicholas. We will proceed with the session, but he's not on. He's on.
Okay.
It is screen. Pascal is also muted.
All right, Nicholas, could you come through, please, before we run out of time?
Need to proceed. Yeah, so it appears we have a technology challenge. We'll proceed and just complete the presentation, and then we can get more information about health IT's work maybe perhaps later. We will share the presentation that they are put together so that you can be able to proceed. So I think we'll just move on to the next few sessions, which is just about formation of the user group. We'll go into a brief plenary. We will just take maybe 1 or 2 questions from people who raise their hand in the chat box, so that we can just respond to 2 or 3 questions. The webinar will end in the next 15 minutes or so, but we have some time for questions. If you have a question, please just raise your hand so that the host can give you a chance. There's Eliakim who has raised his hand. Just unmute Eliakim. Eliakim, we can hear you. Hello? Can you speak up? We hear you. You can't see them.
Oh, so it's not for you to see this stuff.
Yeah, I think Eliakim, somehow we didn't get to hear you. With Julia, whose hand is raised. Julia, you have been unmuted. Please make your comments.
Okay, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
My name is Julia. Okay, I'm from Nyambene Sub-County Hospital in Maua, Meru. I was just asking about the ADT tool. Will you migrate even the data in ADT?
Okay, thank you for that question. If there's someone else with a question, you can raise your hand as we respond to Julia. So this migration, Julia, is limited to IQCare. Already, only IQCare will be migrated to KenyaEMR. As such, ADT will not be migrated.
Okay.
The KenyaEMR already has some degree of compatibility with the ADT, and you should be able to send registration messages and the triage information to ADT. So you should be able to keep using your ADT alongside KenyaEMR once you migrate. I can see Pinto hand is up.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening. My name is Pinto. I work there with Steve. I wanted to ask a question, 2 questions, quick ones. One is that the current version of IQCare doesn't have the OTZ modules, but I've seen in the earlier presentation, there's a section where we're talking about that we will be able to migrate all the data sets. So does that mean that the OTZ data which are available will have to be entered into the system post-migration? Then the second question is about pushing of VL data sets into the EMR. Will that be something that will be possible so that once the data sets the results have been uploaded into the national viral load database, it will be pushed automatically into the EMR?
All right, thank you, Pinto, for your 2 questions. So if I understand correctly, your first question was on the availability of OTZ OTC feature within IQCare, as was highlighted in the presentation. Yes, the last version of IQCare that was released in January 13th have OTZ and OFC as part of the characteristics, and also the same feature applies is available in KenyaEMR. So in case of data, if you have any OTZ data which you will have keyed in IQCare, that data should be migrated to KenyaEMR as part of this migration. The second question was regarding the pushing of VL to the EMR. Both systems currently are integrated to use to consume or rather to receive VL results from the national lab through the interoperability layer. And that is for both IQCare and KenyaEMR. So by migrating, that functionality will not be lost. It will still be available for you within KenyaEMR.
Okay, so as you can hear, KenyaEMR can already receive viral loads through the interoperability layer and as OTZ. So the next is Clifford.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, Clifford, we can hear you.
Yes, first of all, I would love to appreciate the fact that the system is good. We are eagerly waiting for it. But I have got one question. Hello?
Yes, yes, Clifford, as you continue, please let's try to mute if you're not speaking, so that we can be able to hear the question right. Thank you.
Yes, Clifford, we can go ahead.
I can go ahead.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Clifford.
Okay, thank you so very much. Yeah. First of all, I would have to appreciate the system. You people are really working so hard to ensure that we have a beautiful system. But I have got one question, though it has not been discussed yet. It was not one of what we are discussing. But I would have to ask for the KP programming. Would the KPMR be incorporated into the KenyaEMR so that we have one EMR for both treatment and key population?
Thank you, Clifford, and thank you for your appreciations. We receive it. Now for KP, yes, we have KP system that is somehow separate from KenyaEMR, although it runs on top of OpenMRS framework. We are looking at how to incorporate it as one system, both KP, so that it appears like one of the modules within KenyaEMR. And I'm sure in the coming few months, you'll be getting specific updates on how that on how that activity is taking shape, because we want to ensure that there is there is quality of service both for the caregiver and also for the client at the facility is seamless and useful. Thank you.
Okay, so I can see most of the questions are coming through the chat. So we'll kind of just go into some closing sessions. Just a few updates that we would like to just highlight. One is that on the formation of the migration user groups, we are looking forward to having the user groups. From the presentation, you noted that the first set of user groups should be focused on HIS, guys who are a bit more technically savvy on health information system, who understand KenyaEMR or IQCare very well, can be able to set up, can be taught to set up the migration toolkit and interact with it. So we are requesting partners to share nominees. We had proposed some names from each of your organizations. We will be reaching out to you immediately after this webinar to just validate whether the names are the persons you have, or to nominate additional or other people that will participate in this migration focus groups. In order to keep it tight and neat, we will limit the numbers per partner to just 2 or 3, so that we are able to make sure that internally you have at least one person, 2 people who can be able to have technical knowledge on the migration, and they can then cascade the training to internally within your organization once they come back. And what we are looking for is people who will be able to conduct the migration several times using dummy databases, so that they can be able to give us feedback and also help us improve the toolkit before May. We are having county sensitization meetings, as we had indicated earlier in the presentation. So the first cluster meeting has already started in Nyahururu. The next one will be early March. For Upper Eastern, we will be in early March. So we will be sharing communication to the partners who are in that area, so that you can prepare to support your counties if necessary, to come to the meetings. Palladium will be supporting quite a number of individuals from the county to participate, but we'll be collaborating with you to see if there's any additional person who need to attend the meeting. The pre-migration data cleaning. I think this is a very important part of the migration. I know we have emphasized it a lot of time. It will not stop the migration if you do not clean your data. But the lessons we have learned from previous migrations is that if you don't clean your data before you migrate, you will find yourself cleaning it after you migrate. So as much as we are saying that you can migrate without having to clean your data, please make an effort to migrate the data from where it was generated, because there is going to be a bit of a learning curve for the staff who you will be requiring to do the cleaning after migration has taken place. The other issue that I just want to highlight is that in the EMRs as currently set up, mostly you'll find yourself cleaning only the active patients, because the patients who have since been care-ended, you may not be able to clean those records. One of the components of cleaning that is often ignored is deduplication. Through the DOA tool, you are able to access a feature for searching for duplicates. Both IQCare and KenyaEMR currently have a feature for finding and merging duplicates. So please help your staff, the staff at the facility level, to be able to know how to use these functionalities, so that they can search and merge duplicates, and so that at the end of the migration period, you have KenyaEMR that has clean data. Finally, is just about ensuring that the MOH is has participated at county level, has been involved in the process throughout. We will be setting up demonstration sites for this migration. We will not set for all the partners. So during the migration focus groups, we'll be working with you to identify facilities that can be migration centers of excellence or as demonstration sites for migration. So we do not want to choose these sites ourselves. We will work with service delivery partners and counties to identify sites that will act as demonstration sites for migration. So I think that summarizes the space I had for this. I can see Nicholas is now ready to give us feedback.
I don't know if you're getting me now, Jacob?
Yes, I can hear you. Allow Marili to put up your presentation so that we can give you this chance to the next 2-3 minutes to help us conclude the presentation. Maybe you can introduce yourself in the meantime, please.
Yeah, so introduction. My name is Nicholas Ngosi. I work for Health IT, USID, based in University of Nairobi. And I work there as a lead EMR EHR developer for the company. And our mandate generally is to scale up KenyaEMR and make it available in as many sites as possible, and at the same time make it be a complete facility-wide application. So one thing that we are doing currently, we are carrying out assessments and ICT survey in facilities, and what we are targeting is to lay out the infrastructure that are selected by USID, So this one will come in handy when you're doing migration from IQCare to KenyaEMR. If you get ready with the infrastructure, then the applications and migration will run on it. So from our side, we are promising to make sure where we don't have network, we don't have servers, we don't have all the equipment that are needed, as long as they're part of the USAID selected counties and facilities. Another thing is that for capacity building, we'll work as a team. We've worked as a team before on KenyaEMR, including the KP population module that we're working on in the country.
Hello.
That's a different voice.
Hello.
So we have universities
Hello.
that we're working collaboratively with. We call them CPUs. Those are
Hello.
county proximate. One of it is Masinde Muliro, Maseno, Rongo, and Kabianga. So those are some of the resources that are available for use to this project. We can easily assign such resources to help you and everyone else to provide the they need. So as long as the migration facilities will be within the proximity of those universities, then those resources will be available. So the CPUs that I'm talking about. Then like me and other technical people who understand OpenMRS framework and how patients can be validated, reconciliated, and how data migration needs to be audited, then we can donate our time as technical guys to help validate patients, make sure the patients that are getting in from a different data model gets well fit within OpenMRS, and patient objects are really valid based on the standards that OpenMRS has put in place. So in addition to that, we'll have offsite support. Offsite support, I mean, we can connect from headquarters in Nairobi through TeamViewer, webinars, or Skype, or share screens, and give the support that is needed. So above all, what we're saying, we're just going to work as a team to make sure KenyaEMR scale up is up to date and what benchmarks we have for the country. Thank you.
Yes, so I think we are coming to the close of the webinar. I just want to emphasize just one thing. The interoperability layer will still be able to work with the KenyaEMR to send registration messages, triage information to ADT, and it will still be able to pull viral load data from the viral load database to the EMR. So you do not need to enter viral loads manually. For those who have never used the interoperability layer, please reach out to your service delivery partner so that they can help you to set it up and be able to make it work for you. I'm taking this opportunity to thank you for your patience for 1.5 hours and 2 minutes, and to be part of this webinar. As usual, the questions that are typed in the chat box will be made available to you with the responses included. So if you have not been able to ask any question, please just type it in to the chat box and we'll respond to it and share with you the responses. The webinar presentation will also be shared with you, and it will also be available on YouTube in case you need to look at it on the go on your device. We will be communicating on the first focus group so that you can be able to nominate the participant to the focus groups, and look out for the email on the sensitizations, on the county sensitization cluster meetings. Thank you very much to the presenters. You have done a great job, and to CDC for facilitating this meeting. We also want to appreciate Head NASCOP for being in this meeting and giving her remarks. Faith is still online. If you're still online, Faith, please just raise your hand. We give you the opportunity to close the meeting.
Yes, I'm still online. Sorry, I dropped off at some point due to technical challenges, but it was not a technical challenge. It was the good participation. Yeah, so I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for the active participation and for the numbers that turned out to this webinar. And thank you to the presenters, Jacob and Tim. I think this was really great, and hopefully this is what we shall continue having more frequently. And I appreciate each one of you. And to the questions that I've seen from the chats, I believe majority of them have been answered too. And what I want to really emphasize is the fact that all of us, please, let's get ready for migration. And key to this is to make sure that our data is of good quality so that when migration happens, we do not blame the migration process. Otherwise, all the rest has really been said, and I really want to thank the support from our bosses, Dr. Catherine Rugi, and the CDC boss, Joe Baker, for being there for us and for the support. I think this shows that the presentation is really something that has been built consensus through during the SIRI Committee of Experts. Otherwise, I thank everyone for the meeting, and bye-bye for now.
Okay, thank you, Faith, and bye, everyone. We'll remain online for about 5 minutes to allow anyone who needs to type any questions in the chat box to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, Anthony.
Bye, people.
Bye.
Kwaheri.
Bye-bye. Call brother.
Oh.
Bye.
Bye, Mwariri. Watu tu wanaongea.
Preliminary coronary some words was just, but it's okay.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Hello. Chamge.
I said it.
Bye, bye, bye.
Meeting imeisha.
Ready?
Mwangi, sasa.
Mwangi is now ready to talk to you.
Address the nation.
Mwangi address the nation.
Mwangi.
Quel extra.
Maritime.
Na bali tumeenda. Unaenda itu.
Chupela.
Akili kali kwa wapi? Usishangae huyu ametoka Saburu
That I think like dataset coronary artery today break on the day on the house. Yeah.